Part of what makes the Marvel Cinematic Universe so much fun is how plotlines can not only expand over multiple movies but get satisfying payoffs. Just look at the journey of Captain America, which spanned nearly a decade and ended on an emotionally affecting note that brought his story back to the woman he loved. It's easy to feel skepticism over a Disney crossover, and the announcement of Sea of Thieves, A Pirate's Life, an expansion based on Pirates of the Caribbean, was undercut by exhaustion over the film series and the character of Captain Jack Sparrow in general. Ditto the saga of Iron Man, which saw a man who once cared only for himself sacrificing himself for all of existence. The way these plotlines can breathe over years and years makes their resolutions all the more gratifying. But developer Rare explained their vision for this set of 5 tall tale story missions, describing it as not just a tribute to the films, but the Disney theme park ride as well. Sea of Thieves from its genesis was pitched as Pirates of the Caribbean meets Wind Waker, and A Pirate's Life is not some soulless corporate tie-in, but an opportunity for the developer to fully realize the game's original vision while paying homage to what inspired it in the first place. But that doesn't mean that every single storyline in the MCU has gotten a proper ending. In fact, several storylines in this expansive franchise have ended up just fizzling out entirely despite being tailor-made for exciting continuations. And for devotees of Sea of Thieves who have paid attention to the game's earlier tall tales, its theme park inspirations were evident from the very beginning. Narrative-based video games already carry a lot in common with theme park rides. There is a linear path that the game guides you through, usually through automated NPCs and scripted cinematic events. But Sea of Thieves has always incorporated a degree of interactivity and exploration, expanding the idea that you are walking through a virtual theme park. I have a friend who used to work as a cast member in Disney World, and even long before the reveal of A Pirate's Life, they would remark on the feeling of a Disney park in Sea of Thieves, particularly through the tall tales. Everything from teases of famous supervillains to seemingly critical relationships centered around certain superheroes has gotten shockingly little in the way of concrete resolution. The reasons are varied for why a franchise that prides itself on offering up cathartic resolutions of existing plotlines would abandon these narrative threads. Whether we were solving riddles and avoiding traps in The Art of the Trickster, or looking at constellations and jumping from island to island in Stars of a Thief, these tall tales, to my friend, were reminiscent of running around Disney World on a hot Orlando day. Take Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom, a mainstay of Disney World that the park only recently removed. Screens representing magic portals were hidden throughout Adventureland, and upon activating them with cards that you receive, you would be presented with a scenario where you must use your cards to cast spells and defeat classic Disney villains. These portals would be disguised behind windows, within gift shops, or in fireplaces, areas you would pass by and not think of, but these are actually hotspots for storytelling with familiar characters. In some cases, it's due to a certain sequel not getting made, while other stories are victims of the MCU's narrative focus shifting to other priorities. After beating a portal, you would be told where in the park to go next. Whatever caused these plotlines to remain unresolved, they now stick out like a sore thumb in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The origin of the leader in The Incredible Hulk at the end of The Incredible Hulk, Tim Blake Nelson Samuel Stearns is coerced into giving Emil Blonsky, Tim Roth, a medical procedure that turns him into the Abomination. As Blonsky charges out of Stearns' office, he sends the scientist flying into a wall. Similarly, the open world of Sea of Thieves has a number of seemingly innocuous set-pieces, only to be the center of tall tales that explore deeper lore behind the game's NPCs, and they task you to explore parts of the world you otherwise may never visit. That's the core of a Disney park experience, making you feel active in an otherwise linear experience, and on the way, the story provides you with lore, details, and other fun character moments through interactive puzzles. Music cues and other happenings in Disney parks are also very analogous to how Sea of Thieves presents both its tall tales and dynamic world events, such as when a megalodon or skeleton ship emerges to attack you. As Stearns lies on the ground, a small drop of Hulk's blood falls from a nearby table onto a wound on Stearns' forehead. And as my friend points out, some Disney park regulars are happy to help strangers understand the mechanics of something like Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom, or direct them whenever they're lost. During the best and wholesome moments of Sea of Thieves, other random players might help you in the same way. Sea of Thieves. A Pirate's Life really is a labor of love with meticulous detail, especially in the first and third tall tales of the expansion. The man's head begins to bubble and, just like that, the origin story of Marvel Comics villain the Leader is put into motion. The producers of this project were hoping Stearns could return in an Incredible Hulk sequel with the Leader's green skin and enormous cranium. However, the Incredible Hulk didn't light the box office on fire, and there were also rights issues regarding further solo Hulk movies, leaving a reappearance by the Leader in limbo. More than a decade after The Incredible Hulk, other characters from that Marvel Cinematic Universe entry, such as General, Thunderbolt, Ross and even the Abomination, have come back to play a part in newer movies. Ghost pirate NPCs would stand in for the ride animatronics, and audio ripped directly from the Pirates of the Caribbean ride would blare, most notably the haunting, "Dead Men Tell No Tales" soundbite. But the origin story of the Leader has never been followed up on, and it doesn't appear to be something that'll get expanded upon anytime soon. Darcy and Ian's romance in Thor: The Dark World. In Thor: The Dark World, a comic relief character got her own comic relief sidekick. The second and fourth tall tales felt like proper theme park rides where you wait in line, and like in real life, these story missions would sometimes malfunction and fail to reset. But Captains of the Damned, the third tall tale, is where more blatant recreations of the theme park ride came into the forefront. The town of Isla Tesoro is just one theme park ride reference after another, with full virtual reenactments of Barbassa attacking the fort, Carlos dunked into a well while his wife yells to, "Don't be chicken," and the famous auction scene by the Mercado. But while my ex-Disney cast member friend reveled in all of this, the moment provoked tears of emotion and nostalgia was actually at a much smaller reference. While going off the beaten path to explore the town, they found a skeleton sitting on a bridge, resembling what they called the hairy leg animatronic. That hairy leg funny guy is an element that has survived oral tradition amongst both Disney cast members and very frequent visitors of the ride as a distinct part of the ride locked in their memories. It was a small detail that signaled that some rare developers have been on the ride a lot. Darcy Lewis, Kat Dennings, Jane Foster's humorous intern from the first Thor film, got an assistant to help her lug things around in the form of Ian Boothby, Jonathan Howard. My friend spent most of their time in that tall tale exploring, like a ride passenger going off the rails, finding details like another animatronic reference to a pirate with a seagull on its hat using the same audio from the ride, or closely examining each item from the Mercado auction. The two have a mildly conflict-ridden dynamic throughout the adventure before abruptly kissing during the invasion of London by the Dark Elves. Everything had a Sea of Thieves flavor and aesthetic, yet it was all still very recognizable. Even for myself, someone who certainly hasn't been to Disney World as many times as some hardcore fans, there was still a lot for me to latch onto as someone who finds the Pirates of the Caribbean film series as a guilty pleasure. Despite being around for so much of Thor: The Dark World, Ian didn't possess much in the way of personality. He was just another earthbound human who delivered small quips and was ill-equipped to deal with all things superheroic. Sure, Jack Sparrow is a pretty annoying character in 2021, but I constantly held my breath waiting for him to say, "Bring me that horizon." The tall tales fit in comfortably with the mythology of the films, recreating iconic scenes and dropping memorable lines and music cues from the first three movies in particular, like "Hoist the Colors," and the use of Davy Jones's motif. There wasn't even much chemistry between him and Dennings, romantic or otherwise. He wasn't painfully irritating, just not all that memorable. Ian's role in the MCU was extremely short-lived. He, like all of Thor's Earthbound cohorts, did not return for Thor: Ragnarok. In the years since, however, Jane Foster, Natalie Portman, has managed to land a comeback in Thor: Love and Thunder, while Darcy returned in WandaVision as a full-fledged Doctor. Even the chilling mermaid theme from the often forgotten fourth movie provided a cinematic highlight. There's something for all Pirates of the Caribbean enthusiasts in Sea of Thieves: A Pirate's Life, whether you still love the theme park ride to this day or used to enjoy one or several of the movies. Yet Darcy made no mention of Ian despite the two locking lips during the climax of The Dark World. Their romance, and the character of Ian altogether, was just not meant to last very long in this franchise. Pepper Potts and Tony Stark taking a break in the middle of Captain America: Civil War. Tony Stark drops a bombshell on Steve Rogers. He and Pepper Potts are taking a break. And with some Easter eggs to the Monkey Island game series, Fans are imagining future crossovers with other Disney properties Muppet Treasure Island and Treasure Planet. After the character was absent from Avengers: Age of Ultron, due to her duties to Stark Industries, this confirmed that Stark was officially single again, thanks in part to his non-stop adventures with the Avengers. Stark's wealth would make it seem like he could have anything at his fingertips, but he couldn't keep the woman he loved around. It was a significant development that played into the darker headspace that Stark occupied in Civil War, and explained why he felt the need to embrace the Sokovia Accords so he could protect the loved ones he still had. But ultimately, it's that theme park connection that makes Sea of Thieves so strong and heartfelt. Thematically, A Pirate's Life is all about freedom, and this Sea of Thieves expansion gives the player the freedom to wander and absorb a virtual theme park at their own pace. It also helped explain why Paltrow's Potts was suddenly MIA from the franchise. But this development was abruptly upended in Spider-Man: Homecoming, when Pepper Potts not only reappeared but was being intimate with Stark as if nothing had ever happened. There was even a gag about Stark popping the question to Potts in lieu of introducing Spider-Man in his Iron Spider outfit to members of the press. The sudden loss of Potts in Stark's life never got referenced in the following two Avengers movies either, making this a strange unexplained detour in the love life of two principal MCU figures. Erik Selvig's psychological problems in the wake of The Avengers, Thor: The Dark World, find scientist Erik Selvig struggling to maintain a proper psychological state. Having had Loki control his mind for an extended period of time, Selvig is now fit to bouts of strange behavior, like wandering around Stonehenge naked. He's even been locked up in a psych ward, which Darcy and Ian must break him out of to assist Thor in his quest to defeat the Dark Elves. It's a story development that doesn't work on a comedy level, too many gags making fun of mental impairments, but it does provide an interesting way of making sure the events of The Avengers don't just disappear. The lingering aftereffects of Selvig getting his brain scrambled in The Avengers wouldn't last forever, however. When Thor went to recruit the man's help in Age of Ultron, Selvig was seen walking out of a college that he teaches at. Not only had he returned to his regular day job, but there wasn't any indication of him having any psychological trauma to parse out. Any attempt to establish a lasting impact from the events of the first Avengers didn't go on for long, as seen by how quickly Selvig recovered after The Dark World. Justin Hammer vowing revenge at the end of Iron Man 2. At the end of Iron Man 2, weapons manufacturer Justin Hammer, Sam Rockwell, after giving away valuable information about Ivan Vanko's, Mickey Rourke, big evil plan, is arrested by police officers. After initially resisting, Hammer is finally carted away by law enforcement. As this happens, he calls back to Pepper Potts and Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson, that this isn't over and that he'll be getting his revenge sooner rather than later. Perhaps that was originally the plan. MCU films don't just keep any villain alive and well, after all. Keeping Hammer alive and thirsting for vengeance had to be thought of as a way to set up future installments. However, for whatever reason, Hammer has not re-emerged in the MCU. Iron Man 3 had no place for Hammer, while other movies starring Tony Stark, like Captain America: Civil War, also found no room for him. The most peculiar part of this is that Rockwell's profile has increased substantially since Iron Man 2 came out. Having won a Best Supporting Actor Academy Award and getting another Oscar nod in the same category, one would think Marvel Studios would be scrambling to bring him back. Instead, Rockwell's entire presence in this franchise has been limited to Iron Man 2, and a tiny cameo in the short film, All Hail the King. Betty Ross and Bruce Banner's relationship in The Incredible Hulk. Viewers aren't just introduced to the MCU incarnation of the unjolly Green Giant. They also get a first glimpse of the franchise's version of the romance between Bruce Banner, Edward Norton, and Betty Ross, Liv Tyler. This is a relationship complicated by Banner watching out for his heart rate quickening, out of fear of turning into the Hulk. This dynamic was established as a crucial part of Banner's life and was even used, through Hulk uttering the word, Betty, as a signifier that there may be more of Banner in the Hulk than there appeared. However, Betty has never resurfaced in the MCU despite her father, General Thunderbolt Ross, William Hurt, managing to re-emerge as a recurring presence in recent entries in the saga. The character hasn't even been referenced again, either by her father or by Banner. Instead, Banner took up a romance with Black Widow in Avengers: Age of Ultron, which seemed to close the book on this initial love affair for the Hulk's alter ego. The only post-Incredible Hulk nod to the character in the MCU was through the initial codename for the Hulkbuster armor AI in Age of Ultron, being Veronica, a nod towards the Archie character of the same name who had a rivalry with a lady named Betty. Nick Fury going rogue at the end of The Winter Soldier, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, ends with a genuinely nifty beat. Nick Fury opts to remain dead. After faking his death earlier in the film, one would expect Fury to just return to his regular day-to-day duties by the end of the feature. Instead, Fury makes the conscious choice to remain deceased to the general public. The viewer even gets a glimpse at his headstone located in a Washington, D.C. cemetery. As Fury walks off-screen in The Winter Soldier, the possibilities for what he could be up to next are limitless. Strangely, then, Age of Ultron brings things right back to their original status quo. While initially Fury is depicted as someone who's been off the grid for a while, he's eventually shown to be manning a helicarrier in his traditional leather garb to help Sokovian civilians get to safety. Rather than a shadowy individual believed to be dead by most, Fury is once again a public figure that everyone knows is alive and well. It's a strange move that undercuts the ending of The Winter Soldier, and all the narrative possibilities that Fury remaining dead could have brought. Everything related to the planet Xandar in the initial Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Xandar is an important planet. It's where 4 of the 5 titular superheroes meet up, as well as home to the headquarters of the Nova Corps organization, and the backdrop for Ronan the Accuser's massive final battle to execute his vengeance against the planet's occupants. Given all that and the fact that it housed an Infinity Stone at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy, fans might expect such a location and its characters, including Nova Prime, Glenn Close, and Roman Day, John C. Reilly, to reappear throughout future MCU adventures, particularly cosmic-based ones. Instead, the planet hasn't reappeared at all in subsequent films. The Nova Corps gets name-dropped in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, while Xandar also gets mentioned in Thor: Ragnarok and Avengers: Infinity War. That's the extent that this planet has factored into the franchise post Guardians of the Galaxy, with even its destruction as Thanos procured its Infinity Stone happening entirely off-screen. Xandar started as a seemingly important place, but it's been largely brushed aside in the mythology of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The fate of Bobby Morse starting with the show's second season, Bobby Morse, Mockingbird, Adrian Palicki, was a critical part of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and its ever-expanding mythology. However, she and her love interest Lance Hunter eventually left S.H.I.E.L.D. in the third season episode, Parting Shot. In universe, this was because the duo would be more dangerous to their S.H.I.E.L.D. comrades if they stuck around. They were forced to leave to keep Coulson and company safe. However, beyond these fictitious confines, Morse's sudden absence was done to allow herself and Hunter to headline a spin-off show entitled, Marvel's Most Wanted. However, those plans hit a snag once ABC opted to pass on Most Wanted, leaving the two characters in a state of limbo. Suddenly, it was uncertain where exactly Morse fit into the MCU, with the two failing to return to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as series regulars even after Most Wanted went belly up. Though Hunter managed to return in a guest appearance capacity in a later episode of S.H.I.E.L.D., Morse remained MIA for the rest of the program's run. Part of this appears to be due to scheduling conflicts for Palicki, who eventually found a lead role on the Fox sci-fi series, The Orville. However, no official reason has ever been given for her sudden departure. Whatever caused the character's absence, a hole was left in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
mythology that kept all storylines related to Morse awkwardly unresolved. What happened to Ghost? For Ant-Man and the Wasp, the two titular tiny heroes faced off against not Thanos, not He Who Remains, but rather Ghost, Hannah John Kamen, a woman who can move through objects and constantly looks like she's glitching in and out of reality itself. Ghost turned out to be a morally complicated figure, one who merely wanted to cure her condition, not destroy the world. While she wasn't above doing bad things, she was also somebody whose life wasn't defined by acts of malice. A scene at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp suggested that she and her surrogate father figure Bill Foster, Lawrence Fishburne, would be sticking together for whatever came next. But Ghost has ended up being absent so far from the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Despite Ant-Man even name-dropping her during the mid-credits scene of Ant-Man and the Wasp, Ghost has never appeared in another MCU entry. It also doesn't look like Ghost will get her storyline resolved in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. There's been no news on John Kamen getting cast in that film, plus she's committed to starring in Red Sonja. The Scorpion's thirst for revenge in the middle of Spider-Man: Homecoming. The young webcrawler's inexperience with properly handling criminals is made apparent through the bungling of his attempt to stop a weapons sale on a ferry. This transaction involves the henchman of the film's primary villain, Adrian Toomes, the Vulture, Michael Keaton. But it also entails Mac Gargan, Michael Mondo, a criminal who, in the comics, is also known as the supervillain the Scorpion. Here, Gargan is depicted as just a person, albeit one with a scorpion tattoo on his neck, and one who quickly vanishes in the chaos of Spider-Man's botched attempt to stop the crime. The mid-credits scene of Homecoming, in which a battered and vengeful Gargan confronts Toomes in prison and asks him if he knows the secret identity of Spider-Man, seem to be setting up the idea of Toomes as a recurring threat to Spider-Man. However, Gargan has made no further appearances in either Spider-Man: Far From Home, or other Sony, Marvel productions like Venom. There has also been no word on him appearing in future productions like Spider-Man: No Way Home, while a rumored presence in the feature, Silver and Black, went nowhere once that film got canned in pre-production. While Gargan was useful in showcasing Spidey's inexperience in Homecoming, the seeming lack of interest in further exploring the character indicates his usefulness in the MCU may have come to a close.